Hey all! So, I promised you a post-mortem on the lowrider wagon after the swap meet. Unfortunately, life got a little bit busy and then I got kind of overwhelmed with the van project, and the garage was such a disaster from everything I was doing that there literally wasn't enough square footage in here to do this video because I didn't have enough floor space to lay the wagon out and talk to you about it. So, let's talk about how it worked, the problems I had, the things I've already done to it, and the things I'm still going to do to it, and then I'm going to fix those in this video. So, the biggest thing I had with this is, if you remember from the original video, this comment of mine. I need to get nylock nuts for these three nuts right here. Except I forgot that, so I never went and put those nuts in place. I just had regular locking nuts on there. And this thing rattled so much being pulled along behind me that they kept wanting to fall off. I actually lost the nut off of, which ones? I actually lost the nut off of the cross piece here, and this one back here I lost the lower nut off of. There's an upper one in here acting as a spacer that kept this from falling off, but the nuts for this and this kept rattling loose. So I lost those two, but it would still function without them, but I kept having to pause regularly to just with my hand tighten this one back up and tighten this one back up so they wouldn't fall off and the whole steering assembly wouldn't fall out of it. So I needed to use this for another event, so I kind of did a quick and dirty fix because I still hadn't bought the nylock ones, which is I just used regular nuts, but I double nutted each of these. There's two now, and each of these just jammed against each other to serve that same purpose. So I need to take those off, and I need to put on a proper nylock in each position. The other thing is this extension I made for the handle isn't big enough. It probably needs to be about twice as long. So I either had to be a little bit hunched over, or I had to hold this with my fingertips to be at the right length, which ended up hurting my hand quite a lot. So I need to extend this. I want to make this handle removable just for convenience, so I think I'm going to combine both of those things into one. And when I extend this, I'm also going to make it removable so that it'll be a little easier to store this thing because there isn't this big handle in the way. The other thing that happened with it is the inside of the tray where I'm sitting right now had a ton of surface rust. The whole thing had surface rusted inside. I didn't think anything of it because it's like, I'm going to be hauling parts or whatever, but I threw my backpack in here while I was walking around, and the entire bottom and of the backpack ended up covered in rust dust that got ground into the fabric by the vibration. So the backpack is now stained with dry rust, weirdly enough. I was able to get most of it out, but it wasn't perfect, so obviously I don't want to do that again. So the next event that I was going to be using this for, I was actually going to be stacking a bunch of stuff in it that I didn't want to get gross, like that, chairs and things like that. So what I did was a very quick and dirty attack with a wire brush on the angle grinder to knock all the loose rust off and any loose paint off, and then the entire interior of this got wiped down and clear coated. And I actually really like how it came out. It's still got that patina look, it's still got that look of age, but the shine gives it some depth and intent. So I'm going to be very carefully doing a similar thing on the outside. I'm not going to obviously take a wire brush to the outside, but I'm going to do some very careful cleaning and polishing of the outside, and then it's going to get clear coated as well. Same with the wheels in the back. They're going to get the same sort of treatment. All this metal here is going to get cleaned up and then clear coated because it'll just make the whole thing pop. I'm going to do actually I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do the handle, I'm going to do this panel, I'm going to do the front suspension. Everything's just going to get a coat of clear rather than being painted. I think that'll look more interesting and it'll protect everything so this doesn't all flash rust up here, because this is all still bare metal. So those are the two major problems that came up when I was using it. The other two things are it rattles like crazy, and I don't think there's anything I can do about that. But I think I may end up I'm not so worried about it at this moment. What I think I may do is take this off and put little strips of either rubber or foam or something on the top of the frame and then screw this back down just so that this isn't rattling against the frame. That may help, it may not, but it's worth a shot. And then the other thing I want to do is further increase its turning radius, because it needs to just about jam itself full drift spec to be able to turn enough, because there were definitely times where I had to take big long swings or lift the front end up to turn it where I wanted to. So I'm going to rather aggressively carve away at the steering arms. I did a little bit, but I'm going to do a hell of a lot more so that this thing can really crank the steering over as far as possible. The nut under here, I'm just noticing, is actually hitting the frame, so that may actually be my limiter. I may have to flip this around and have the taller nut on the top and the shallower bolt on the bottom so that there's enough clearance there. But yeah, that's what it is. It worked exactly for what I needed to. Those big wheels that are on the back of the van that have the tires on that, hauled those in here. The bins, little metal bins, hauled those in here. It worked great for exactly what I needed to. I just need to make some tweaks on it to make it better. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so as you just saw, I just trimmed these over here on either side to get more turn out of this. So yeah, so these are all adjusted. This is all what I need. I'm going to make two changes from the way this was before. One is the bolt that goes up through here is going to go up through here rather than down, because down it sticks out further and we hit the frame and limit my travel. So that's an easy fix. I'm going to swap it around the other way. The other thing is, the way I had this before, the bolt came up from below and there was a nut in here. What I'm going to do now is swap it around the other way so that the nut's on the bottom, because this plate and the lower plate, once that bolt is, I'm going to weld this bolt to this piece. I'm going to weld this nut in place, and then I'm going to weld these two together, because there's just a little bit of slop between the two, because this pipe here, these fit loosely in, and that was giving me a weird, when I was trying to use it, it would like bend and stuff in weird ways. So I'm going to lock these two together, and that requires locking that bolt in there and locking this nut over here in place in the process. So yeah, gonna get to that. Alright, so that's how I welded it up together. As you saw, I had some problems. What I didn't realize is I welded one side up, I flipped it over. I didn't see the bolts slide out, and so I welded up this side misaligned. So I had to cut it free and re-weld it, and in all of that, it's not perfect, but it's solid, so it'll do. I'm content with it. So yeah, everything's going to get cleaned now, and some of it's going to get scuffed just where I don't like what it looks like. It's got some areas have a little bit of surface rust, and then it's all going to get sprayed with clear and set aside for the evening. All right, so this is cleaned up and clear coated. I just barely had enough clear coat to do that. The bottom of it's not really shiny because the clear coat was starting to run out and spit, but it sealed it, so that's good enough. It's the bottom, nobody's gonna really see it. The sides did get enough. The Frame is all clear coated, and the little pieces are all clear coated. So those are all great. The only piece left to do is the handle. So the last thing I have to do is lengthen this. What I'm going to do is cut it about here, drill a couple holes in it, slide another piece of pipe in that fits inside this, plug weld it to it, and then cut this off and put a piece that's 6 inches longer in, because that's about the length the handle should be. And then once that's in, I'm going to get the two halves lined up so that they're aligned properly, and then drill a hole straight through to hold a pin. And then that'll allow me to take the two sections apart when I want to, which will make this a little easier to store and whatnot. All right, there we are, one extended and removable handle. So I don't have the pin right now. I thought I had one, I can't find it, but I just used a bolt for now. That just slides out, and then the two sections come apart, and that's still hot. And then it just goes back together the same way. Just put it in, line it up, drop the pin in, and it's gonna be good to go. What I'm gonna do is, like I did on another wagon that I've customized like this, is the pin's going to get attached to a small length of cord that's going to get, you know, tied around this or something so that it's always right there, because there's no reason to ever have it separate. So yeah, that's it. I unfortunately can't clear coat this. I had just enough clear coat, like I said, to finish the other part. So this will get clear coated another day, but I'll do a little bit additional to end this video with the wagon put back together, this clear coated, a pin in that and everything, just showing it all done and good to go. Day 2, time for some wagon reassembly. And there we go, back together. I didn't end up polishing the rear wheels because I want to get some CLR to try and remove the rust while leaving the white paint more intact. I don't have any right now, so that's going to be a separate project for another day. May or may not be in a video, but whatever. But everything else other than the rear wheels is done. Everything's been clear coated. I've tweaked a bunch of stuff, so the front end is much tighter now. I've lengthened that handle and made it removable, and I've clear coated the inside and the outside of the tub so it should last longer. And I also put little bits of seam sealer, just because I didn't have a tube in good shape to do a nice bead. I just put little dots of seam sealer on, just so the tub itself doesn't rattle against the frame, which might make it a little quieter to wheel. So yeah, this is back to full fighting fit. I was happy enough with it when I used it before. This should just make it that much nicer because it'll solve a couple of the problems. These now have lock nuts. That handle's a little longer. It might be a little bit quieter. The steering's going to turn a bit further than it did before. So that's all wins. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.